So, I just finished reading Tokyo Ghoul Re, and it was a hell of a journey. I'm mostly going to be spilling my guts about the ending. It's probably going to be a bit of a rant, but before I get into the rant stuff, I do want to talk a little bit about my general feelings on the series without spoilers, so if you haven't read it or watched it, feel free to stick around for that. And don't worry, fans of Tokyo Ghoul and Re, there will be positives as well in this video. I'll get to those at the very end. So Tokyo Ghoul takes place in a society where there are ghouls. Ghouls are identical to humans in almost every way, except their only source of nutrition is human meat. Yeah, they prey on people and they have these little weapons embedded into their biology called kagunes, which let them do all kinds of fun stuff. Our main character is Ken Kaneki, a quiet, reserved university boy who likes to read, and after an accident he ends up transplanted with ghoul organs, which makes him a human-ghoul hybrid. The series is all about Ken navigating and finding his place in this world where he is kind of both and kind of neither ghoul and human. So overall, what did I like about it? I gotta say it has one of the best ensemble casts I've seen in any anime or manga. There's so many great characters from so many sides of this conflict between human and ghouls. And the story itself is just so ambitious in what it's trying to accomplish. I can't help but feel a lot of respect for that. The art is gorgeous and so stylistic with tons of symbolism and depth just in the visuals alone, and Ken Kaneki is an 11 out of 10 protagonist. What a guy. But I did feel like the last arc kind of dropped the ball. It went way too far from the original concept with all kinds of outlandish things introduced. There are characters coming back from the dead and long built up antagonists like and ended up being pretty underwhelming, to be honest. And the actual ending for both the characters and the main themes of the series was pretty rushed. I wouldn't say it ruins the series or anything, but it's pretty rushed. That's pretty much all I have to say without spoilers. If you're interested, I would definitely say it's worth your time to read. It is not worth your time to watch. The anime adaptation is horrible. Okay, now let's go into the spoilers, and this is probably where I start ranting a little bit. Let's talk about V in Tokyo Ghoul Re. After getting built up for so much of the series as these big bads who were so scary that even Kuzan ran away from them, they turn out to be a bunch of nameless, faceless dudes in masks and top hats. Like, these guys are dressed like Redditors who just watch V for Vendetta. They're just foot soldiers who are working for the Washu family that was in control of everything all along. It's just kind of like, wait, that's it? That's it? Really? They also have a freaking ridiculously overpowered owl ghoul that they can just send out and control via remote control? Like, what? They can spawn these random ass monsters all throughout the city that like spread spores that turn people into ghouls. Like, where did all this come from? It's such a big departure from everything before that. Speaking of which, Furuta was a pretty mediocre villain in the end. Like, from his introduction, he's made out to be this like Machiavellian manipulator, pulling all the strings and making everyone do exactly what he wants for some mysterious end goal that we don't know about. It seemed like for a while he wanted to make Kaneki like the villain that everyone could unite against, which kind of sort of worked. And if that was his plan, it seemed like there was definitely a reason and something he would get out of it. But his end goal and motivation are basically just he wants to destroy the world because he never got to live a normal life himself, which isn't a bad motive. It just doesn't feel like it's in line with what we learned from him up until that point. Like, it's just not specific enough for a guy who apparently planned this very specific sequence of events up until this point in time, which, if we're being honest, was already a stretch to begin with. It's not a bad idea in itself. It's just that the explanation didn't really match the setup, and I wish there was more glue between what we've been shown up until that point and what we were told by Furuta at the very end. If I had to describe him, I'd say he's like a dollar store Joker from The Dark Knight. Like, on the surface, he's just this big chaotic troll who's totally unpredictable, but if you really think about it, he must be planning things in a very specific way in order to achieve the goals that he's achieved. In The Dark Knight, that actually plays into Joker's psychology and makes him more interesting because there is this dichotomy between him representing chaos and the fact that he's constantly making these elaborate plans.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan? You know what I am?
But Furuta doesn't end up feeling like a force of nature like the Joker, or a puppet master-esque figure like Littlefinger in Game of Thrones, or a politically motivated character who's trying to achieve a specific goal because of a specific life experience that he had in the past. He just ends up feeling a bit like an inconsistent mishmash of a whole bunch of different things. Okay, so I'm also disappointed that characters just came back from the dead. Like, Naki should have stayed dead. We saw him die, he had a whole heroic sacrifice thing, but surprise, surprise, he's just asleep. Wow. In my opinion, Hide should have also stayed dead, but I can live with that one, alright? At least we never saw a body, which we all know means that they're not really dead. But okay, my main criticism of the ending of Tokyo Ghoul Re is that it just feels too easy. Like, humans and ghouls come together in this crisis situation. Cool, people can do that. But what happens after the crisis is over? Reconciliation is never that simple. It's always messy and drawn out because there's so many grievances and reparations and considerations, and every group has their own interests and needs. There's so much that we could have seen and gotten in the aftermath of this crisis where they all work together. I can buy that working together in the crisis created goodwill that made them willing to figure things out, but they still had to actually sit down and figure things out. We could have used a at least a few chapters of that. Like at the end of the day, these are still ghouls that feed on human beings, and a one-page simple explanation about, oh yeah, synthetic food, so now they can eat safely, that just brushes it all off. That's not good enough. Like, this is the central cause of conflict between ghouls and humans, the fact that ghouls prey on humans. So how can you just resolve this sociological conflict with a one-page explanation about something that we haven't had any build-up for throughout the series? And even if it was built up throughout the series, it's not like it just came into existence right away. It would have taken time for it to be invented and become widely available. So in that time, how did they make things work between the two groups? Like, did the CCG let ghouls have suicide victims like they did in the past before they were discovered? What other kinds of arrangements were made? What about all the different wards? How did the transition of power to this new societal structure actually occur? This is the meaty stuff. This is the juicy stuff. This is what I wanted to see, and we just kind of brushed it all off. What the hell, man? And speaking of the epilogue that we did get, the Tokyo Ghoul epilogue did a lot of characters dirty. Like, we spend a lot of time on a bunch of irrelevant characters explaining where they are and where they ended up. And meanwhile, important ass characters like Amon and Akira just get one panel from behind with no dialogue or no text. Like, this dude Amon was literally the secondary protagonist of the OG Tokyo Ghoul, and you're just gonna do him like that? Come on, bruh. Okay, let's end off on a good note with some positives. My favorite moment was definitely Amon facing off against the priest. What's his name? Priest Donatello? Yeah? Like, my favorite thing about the series up until this point was definitely how the line between human and ghoul continuously kept getting more and more blurred. Like, we started out as a dichotomy, and then Kaneki was kind of like the middle ground. And he explores that middle ground himself in a lot of different ways, being a ghoul revolutionary, being a CCG investigator, etc., etc. And the lines just keep getting more and more blurred. And as Amon realizes that, he rises above placing blame on one side and neglecting the complexity of his emotions. He's honest with himself about his conflicting feelings about Papa Donatello. It's really a great moment showing the inconsistency of the human condition, and especially when you've grown up with trauma from a familial figure. To an extent, overcoming that trauma requires accepting the natural inconsistency of that trauma. It also mirrors Kaneki's moment where he talks about continuing to choose really well. That's all existence really is. It's just a continuous set of choices. The world is what it is. It's messy. The lines are blurry. No one's really clean. And all humans are made up of innate contradictions. What gives the world meaning is our choices and the effort we put into making it better and how we put that effort in. But we first have to acknowledge that it is inconsistent and understand ourselves before we can change the world. Yeah, I just love this moment. I feel like it really nailed on the themes of Tokyo Ghoul and what I love about it. So don't get me wrong, I'm not just here to hate. There's plenty to love about Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. And I got a lot of respect for Mr. Ishida. Bonus points for a sex scene that didn't make me want to claw my fucking eyes out. But okay, that's it. That's the end. Please feel free to tell me how you feel about Tokyo Ghoul, especially the ending. I know it's pretty divisive, but hey, nothing's perfect, right? It do be like that sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Especially in manga, I find that like I'm rarely satisfied with a manga ending. Except Fullmetal Alchemist. But okay, I'm done. I'll see y'all later. Bye.